The gunshot echoed through the valley like thunder on a clear day, sending a flock of startled crows into the crisp autumn sky. Willow Kincaid stumbled forward, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she clutched the small bundle tighter to her chest. Blood trickled from a gash on her forehead, but she dared not stop, not with Harrison's drunken threats still ringing in her ears and the baby's soft whimpers urging her onward. The year was 1878, and the unforgiving Wyoming Territory offered little mercy to a woman on the run. 3 days earlier, Willow had made the decision that would forever alter her life. She'd found the infant girl abandoned near the creek behind Harrison's ranch, tiny and wailing, wrapped in nothing but a tattered blanket. When she'd brought the child home, her husband had flown into a rage unlike any she'd witnessed before. "I won't feed another mouth, especially not some half-breed orphan," Harrison had roared, his face contorted with fury as he struck her across the face. Now, as Willow pushed through the tall prairie grass, her wedding ring abandoned in the dust of what had once been her home, she had nothing but the clothes on her back, the child in her arms, and the desperate hope of finding sanctuary in the next town. The setting sun cast long shadows across the terrain when Willow finally spotted smoke rising from chimneys in the distance. Whitewater Creek was a modest settlement, little more than a few wooden buildings strung along a dirt road, but to her weary eyes, it looked like salvation. Her legs trembled beneath her as she approached the town, the baby now sleeping against her shoulder. The sign for the Rusty Nail Saloon swung lazily in the evening breeze. Willow hesitated at the entrance, knowing that a woman alone at such an establishment would draw unwanted attention. But with night falling and nowhere else to turn, she pushed through the swinging doors. Conversation died as she entered. A dozen pairs of eyes turned to assess the disheveled woman with the child. Blood had dried on her temple, her dress was torn and dusty, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. "I need help," Willow announced, her voice stronger than she felt. "Is there a doctor in town?" A tall man at the bar straightened, his weathered face showing more curiosity than judgment. "Doc Jenkins is out at the Thornton place. Birth coming early," he explained, setting down his whiskey. "I'm Victor Evans, town marshal." Willow swallowed hard, searching the man's face for any sign of kindness. His eyes were a striking blue against sun-darkened skin, and though he wore a badge, there was something about him that spoke more of open ranges than jail cells. "She needs tending," Willow said, nodding toward the baby. "And I need somewhere to rest. Just for tonight." Victor approached cautiously, as one might a spooked mare. "What happened to you, madam?" His gaze lingered on the cut above her eye. "My husband," Willow's voice broke. She drew a steadying breath. "He beat me for carrying a girl. This child, she's not mine by birth, but—" Victor's expression hardened as he assessed her injuries. "Then you'll raise her proud," he said firmly, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "Mrs. Sullivan runs the boarding house across the street. She's got a kind heart and an empty room." Relief washed over Willow, but she shook her head. "I have no money." Victor nodded toward the barkeep, a signal that seemed to need no explanation. "Tom will put you on my account. Get yourself and the little one settled at Mrs. Sullivan's. I'll come by in the morning to check on you." The barkeep nodded, already reaching for his coat. "I'll walk you over, madam. My wife's there helping with supper. She'll fuss over that baby something fierce." As Tom escorted her out, Willow glanced back at Victor, who tipped his hat slightly. For the first time in days, a fragile tendril of hope unfurled in her chest. Mrs. Sullivan was every bit as kind as promised. The elderly woman clucked her tongue at Willow's injuries, but asked no questions as she showed her to a small but clean room at the back of the house. "You rest now, dear. I'll bring up some broth and see if we can't find something for the little one." Alone in the quiet room, Willow finally allowed herself to sink onto the edge of the bed. The baby stirred, her tiny face scrunching up as she began to fuss. "Hush now, Emma," Willow whispered, using the name she'd chosen on the long walk to town. "We're safe tonight." Whether it was the gentle rocking or simply exhaustion, Emma settled, and Willow's thoughts turned to the marshal. There had been something in his eyes, a steadiness, perhaps, or a quiet strength that had calmed her frantic heart. But she knew better than to trust a man's kind words. Harrison had once spoken sweetly too. Morning brought the promised visit from Victor, along with a town doctor who had returned from his night call. Dr. Jenkins examined both Willow and Emma with professional efficiency. The child is undernourished but otherwise healthy, he concluded, packing away his stethoscope. As for you, Mrs. Just Willow, she corrected quietly. Willow Kincaid. I'm not. I've left my husband. The doctor nodded, his expression carefully neutral. Well, Miss Kincaid, that cut should heal cleanly. The bruises will fade. Rest is what you need most. Victor had remained by the door throughout the examination, his hat in his hands. When the doctor left, he stepped forward. Harrison Blackwell, Willow said before he could speak. That's my husband's name. He'll come looking eventually. Victor's expression tightened. Blackwell has a reputation. Not a good one. Then you understand why I ran, she replied. I do. Victor pulled a chair closer to the bed. Mrs. Sullivan tells me you haven't mentioned going anywhere else. Do you have family? Somewhere safe to go. Willow shook her head. My parents died 3 years ago. I married Harrison soon after. He was different then. Or perhaps I was too naive to see clearly. And the child? Where did she come from? I found her by the creek. Someone had left her there, just wrapped in a blanket. She couldn't have been more than a few days old. Willow's voice softened as she looked at Emma, now sleeping peacefully in a makeshift cradle Mrs. Sullivan had provided. Harrison said she was likely half Indian, given her coloring. He wanted nothing to do with her. Victor was silent for a moment, studying the sleeping infant. What do you intend to do now? It was the question Willow had been asking herself all night. I don't know, she admitted. I have some skill with sewing and cooking. Perhaps there's work to be found. Whitewater Creek's a small town, but growing. The railroad's coming through next year. There'll be opportunities. Victor seemed to be weighing his words carefully. I know Mrs. Peterson at the general store has been looking for help. Her arthritis makes fine stitching difficult. Hope flickered in Willow's chest. You'd recommend me? A stranger? Victor's smile was unexpected and transformative, softening the hard lines of his face. I've always been a fair judge of character, Miss Kincaid. Besides, this town was built by people starting over. That afternoon, with Emma bundled against her chest, Willow made her way to Peterson's general store. Martha Peterson was a bustling woman with silver-streaked hair and shrewd eyes that missed nothing. So you're the woman Marshal Evans has been talking about, she said, sizing Willow up. He says you're handy with a needle. I am, Mrs. Peterson. I can show you. No need for that. Victor's word is good enough. Martha gestured to a torn shirt behind the counter. Fix that while I help Mr. Daniels with his order. Then we'll talk wages. By the time Martha returned, Willow had not only repaired the shirt, but added a subtle reinforcement to prevent future tearing. The older woman examined the work, nodding with approval. You can start tomorrow. 8 o'clock sharp. There's a room at the back where the baby can sleep while you work. Martha's expression softened slightly. My Jacob's been gone 5 years now, but he always said to judge folks by their actions, not their circumstances. Tears of gratitude pricked at Willow's eyes. Thank you, Mrs. Peterson. I won't let you down. See that you don't. And call me Martha. Mrs. Peterson makes me feel every one of my 62 years. Over the next few weeks, Willow settled into a routine. She worked diligently at the store, sewing and tending to customers while Emma napped or played in a basket nearby. The townsfolk, initially curious about the newcomer with the mysterious baby, gradually accepted her presence. Mrs. Sullivan had reduced her rent in exchange for help with evening meals, and Willow found herself, for the first time since her parents' deaths, feeling part of a community. Victor Evans was a frequent visitor to the store. He claimed it was part of his regular rounds, but Willow noticed he always seemed to arrive during quieter moments, lingering to talk. He brought small gifts for Emma, a hand-carved wooden rattle, a soft blanket from the trading post, and showed genuine interest in Willow's day. You're settling in well, he observed one afternoon, watching as Willow measured fabric for Mrs. Tolliver's new curtains. The town's taken to you. People have been kind, Willow agreed, glancing up to find his gaze on her. She looked away quickly, focusing on the measuring tape. Kinder than I had any right to expect. Kindness isn't about rights, Miss Kincaid. It's about seeing another's need and responding. Victor leaned against the counter. How's the little one sleeping these days? The simple question, so domestic, so normal, made Willow's heart ache in an unexpected way. Better. She only wakes once most nights now. Their conversation was interrupted by the jingling bell above the door. Martha entered, returning from her lunch at the cafe. "Marshal Evans, are you distracting my assistant again?" she teased. Victor straightened, a hint of color touching his cheekbones. "Just checking in, Martha. Town business." The older woman hummed knowingly. "Well, don't let your town business keep Willow from finishing Mrs. Tolliver's order. That woman's been waiting on those curtains for a week." After Victor left, Martha fixed Willow with a pointed look. "That man's never paid so much attention to any store in town before you arrived." "He's just being helpful," Willow protested, though her pulse quickened at the implication. "Victor Evans has been the marshal here for 6 years. In all that time, I've never seen him look at a woman the way he looks at you." Martha patted Willow's hand. "Just something to consider, dear." That evening, as Willow rocked Emma to sleep, she allowed herself to think about Victor, his gentle manner with the baby, the respect he commanded in town, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. It had been only a month since she'd fled Harrison's brutality, but it felt like another lifetime. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock at her door. Mrs. Sullivan stood in the hallway, a letter in her hand. "This came for you on the afternoon stage," she said, her expression troubled. "The driver said a man in Cheyenne paid him to deliver it." Willow's hand trembled as she took the envelope. She recognized Harrison's bold scrawl immediately. "Thank you, Mrs. Sullivan," she managed, waiting until the landlady had retreated before breaking the seal. The message was brief but chilling. "I know where you are. What's mine comes home or suffers consequences. 3 days." Sleep eluded Willow that night. By morning, she had made her decision. She would not risk bringing Harrison's wrath down on the kind people of Whitewater Creek. As soon as the store closed, she would gather their few belongings and catch the evening stage heading west. Work provided little distraction from her churning thoughts. When Victor stopped by mid-afternoon, Willow could barely meet his eyes. "Is everything all right?" he asked quietly, concern evident in his voice. "Just tired," she lied, folding a bolt of calico with unnecessary precision. Emma was restless last night. Victor studied her face, clearly unconvinced. "Willow, Marshal!" The shout from outside interrupted whatever he had been about to say. A young boy burst through the door, breathless. "Fight at the saloon. Mr. Davis and that cattle buyer are going at it something fierce." Victor's expression hardened. "Stay here," he told Willow before hurrying out. As soon as he was gone, Willow rushed to the back room where Emma was napping. She gathered the baby and slipped out the rear door, leaving a hastily scrawled note of apology for Martha on the counter. It was cowardly, she knew, but saying goodbye to Victor would have weakened her resolve. The stagecoach depot was mercifully quiet. Willow purchased a ticket to Rock Springs, the furthest she could afford, and settled on a bench to wait, Emma cradled against her chest. "Going somewhere?" The familiar voice sent a jolt through her. Victor stood a few paces away, his expression unreadable. "How did you find me?" Willow asked, her voice barely audible above the nearby blacksmith's hammering. "Martha showed me your note. Wasn't hard to figure out where you'd go." Victor approached slowly, taking a seat beside her. "What I can't figure out is why." Wordlessly, Willow withdrew Harrison's letter from her pocket and handed it to him. Victor read it quickly, his jaw tightening. "So you run?" he asked, his voice carefully controlled. "Let him chase you across the territory. I won't bring trouble to people who've shown me nothing but kindness," Willow replied, fighting back tears. "Harrison is dangerous when crossed. And what about Emma? What kind of life will she have if you're always running?" The question struck Willow like a physical blow. "I don't know," she admitted, her composure finally cracking. "I just know I can't face him again. I can't let him hurt her." Victor placed his hand over hers, his touch gentle but firm. "You don't have to face him alone, Willow." The tenderness in his voice nearly undid her. "Victor, you don't understand what he's capable of." "I understand better than you think." Victor's expression darkened momentarily. "My sister married a man like Harrison. She tried running too, until she had nowhere left to go." He paused, his grip tightening slightly. "I won't let that happen to you." Hope and fear warred within Willow's chest. "What are you suggesting? Come back to town. Let me handle Harrison. And then what? He'll just keep coming." Victor was silent for a moment, his gaze steady on her face. "Then we make it clear you have someone standing with you. Permanently." Willow's breath caught. "What are you saying?" I'm saying I care for you, Willow. More than I should after such a short time. Victor's voice was low, earnest. I'm saying there's a solution that would give you and Emma legal protection and a name that isn't Blackwell's. Marriage, Willow whispered, the word both frightening and alluring. Not right away, Victor clarified quickly. I wouldn't press you for that. But it's something to consider when you're ready. When you're certain. Emma stirred against Willow's chest, letting out a soft coo. The sound seemed to break the tension between them. For now, Victor continued, just come back with me. Trust me to keep you both safe. Trust. Such a simple word for such a monumental act. Willow looked at Emma's peaceful face, then at Victor's outstretched hand. Slowly, deliberately, she placed her fingers in his. All right, she agreed. We'll go back. The following day passed in tense anticipation. Victor had arranged for 2 of his deputies to patrol the town's perimeter, watching for any sign of Harrison. Willow returned to work at the store, though Martha insisted she keep Emma with her at the counter rather than in the back room. Better where we can all see her, the older woman had said firmly. When the afternoon stage arrived, Willow's heart pounded so loudly she was certain everyone in the store could hear it. But no familiar figure emerged from the coach, and she allowed herself a small breath of relief. That evening, Victor escorted Willow and Emma back to the boarding house, his hand resting casually on the revolver at his hip. No sign of him yet, he reported as they walked. But that doesn't mean we let our guard down. Willow nodded, clutching Emma closer. He'll come. Harrison always keeps his threats. At the boarding house steps, Victor hesitated. I'd feel better if you weren't alone tonight. Mrs. Sullivan is here, Willow pointed out, though the thought of Harrison bursting in while they slept made her stomach churn. I was thinking of something more substantial than a 60-year-old woman with a broom, Victor replied dryly. I could sleep in the parlor. Just for tonight. The suggestion was entirely improper, a single man staying in a house with a single woman, regardless of separate rooms, but Willow found she didn't care about propriety. Not when Emma's safety was at stake. Mrs. Sullivan might have something to say about that, she began. Already discussed it with her, Victor admitted. She agrees it's the safest option. Mrs. Sullivan confirmed this when they entered, pointing Victor toward a lumpy sofa in the front parlor. I've laid out some blankets. It won't be comfortable, but it'll do for a night. Willow slept fitfully, starting at every creak and groan of the old house. Emma, however, slumbered peacefully in her makeshift cradle, unaware of the tension surrounding her. Near dawn, Willow finally fell into a deeper sleep, only to be jolted awake by a sharp knocking at the front door. She froze, listening intently. The pounding came again, followed by Victor's muffled voice speaking to someone. Slipping from bed, Willow pulled on her robe and crept to her door, opening it a crack. Victor stood in the hallway, fully dressed despite the early hour. His expression was grim. He's here, he said simply when he saw her. Just rode in. Tom from the saloon spotted him heading toward the hotel. Cold dread washed over Willow. Emma is safe right where she is, Victor assured her. I've spoken with Mrs. Sullivan. She'll stay with the baby while you and I deal with Harrison. I can't face him, Willow whispered, shame and fear mingling in her voice. Victor stepped closer, his hands gentle on her shoulders. You can. You're stronger than you know, Willow. But you won't face him alone. An hour later, dressed in her most respectable dress, a navy blue cotton, with minimal adornment, Willow walked beside Victor toward the small building that served as both jail and marshal's office. They had decided that neutral ground, with the authority of the law clearly present, was the safest place for the confrontation. Remember, Victor said quietly as they approached, you've done nothing wrong. The baby was abandoned. You saved her life. Even by territorial law, you have as much claim to raise her as anyone. Willow nodded, though her throat was too tight for speech. As they entered the office, she immediately spotted Harrison seated in a chair by Victor's desk. He looked much as she remembered, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair and a thick mustache, but his eyes were bloodshot, and a certain wildness lurked in his expression. He stood as they entered, his gaze locking on Willow. There's my wayward wife, he said, his voice deceptively pleasant. Come home, Willow. I'm willing to forgive your indiscretion. Victor positioned himself slightly in front of Willow. Mr. Blackwell, your wife has made it clear she doesn't wish to return with you. Harrison's smile vanished. This doesn't concern you, Marshal. A man has rights to his wife. A man has responsibilities to his wife, Victor corrected evenly. Responsibilities that don't include beating her for showing basic human decency to an abandoned child. The accusation hung in the air between them. Harrison's expression darkened. She tell you that? He asked, eyes narrowing. She always did have a talent for dramatics. Probably fell and hit her head, then spun you some tale. Willow found her voice at last. Stop it, Harrison. We both know what happened. What happened, Harrison spat, is that you brought a half-breed bastard into my home and expected me to feed it. No real man would stand for that. Victor's hand moved to his holster, but Willow stepped forward. A real man, she said, her voice steadier than she felt, wouldn't strike a woman half his size for showing compassion. A real man wouldn't threaten and terrorize his wife. Harrison lunged forward suddenly, his hand outstretched as if to grab her. Victor moved with surprising speed, catching the larger man's wrist and twisting it behind his back in one fluid motion. That's enough, Victor said, his voice deadly calm as he forced Harrison into a chair. Miss Kincaid is under my protection now. She's filed for divorce on grounds of cruelty, which any judge in the territory will grant once they see the evidence. Harrison struggled against Victor's grip. You can't do this. She's my wife. Not for much longer, Victor replied, releasing him but remaining vigilant. Now, you have two choices, Blackwell. You can sign the papers I have right here, granting a divorce and relinquishing any claim to Willow or the child, or you can spend the next month in my jail while we wait for the circuit judge. Harrison's face flushed with rage. This is theft. You're stealing my property. I'm not property, Willow stated, a new strength in her voice. I never was. I was a fool to believe your promises of care and protection, but I'm no longer that naive girl. Sign the papers, Harrison, then leave and never come back. For a tense moment, Harrison looked as though he might lunge at her again. Then, abruptly, his posture changed. A calculating look entered his eyes. Fine, he said, his tone suddenly conversational. You want to play house with the marshal here, be my guest. You were never much of a wife anyway. He reached for the papers on Victor's desk, scrawling his signature with unnecessary force. But mark my words, Willow, you'll regret this day. Victor collected the signed documents. Those sound like threats, Mr. Blackwell. I'd advise against making them in front of a lawman. Harrison stood, straightening his coat with exaggerated dignity. No threat, Marshal. Just a prediction. Women like her always come crawling back eventually. Without another word, he stalked out of the office, the door slamming behind him. Willow's legs finally gave out, and she sank into the nearest chair, trembling with the aftermath of confrontation and relief. He signed, she whispered, scarcely believing it. Just like that. Victor knelt before her, concern etched in his features. Are you all right? She nodded, though tears threatened. I never thought. I was prepared for violence, for a fight, not for him to simply let go. Men like Harrison don't let go, Victor said grimly. They just change tactics. I'll have my deputies watch him until he leaves town. And if he doesn't leave? Victor's expression hardened. Then he'll discover that my jail is remarkably uncomfortable. To their surprise, Harrison departed on the noon stage, heading east toward Cheyenne. Victor personally confirmed his departure, watching as the coach rolled away in a cloud of dust. It seems almost too easy, Willow confessed as they walked back to Mrs. Sullivan's to collect Emma. Perhaps, Victor agreed. But the papers are signed. They'll be filed with the territorial court next week. As far as the law is concerned, you'll be free of him. Free. The word resonated within Willow like a bell. Free to make her own choices. Free to raise Emma without fear. Free to explore the feelings growing between her and the steady, honorable man beside her. The following months brought changes both subtle and profound. Willow continued working at the general store, but she and Emma moved into a small cottage at the edge of town when it became vacant in late autumn. The women of Whitewater Creek organized a home warming, arriving with curtains, quilts, and pantry staples to make the little house a home. Victor was a frequent visitor, first under the pretense of checking their safety, then more openly as a caller. He brought firewood, repaired loose boards on the porch, and spent evenings sitting with Willow by the fire after Emma was asleep. Winter descended on the Wyoming Territory with characteristic ferocity, but inside the cottage, warmth prevailed. Victor taught Willow to shoot a small revolver, just in case. He insisted, and she taught him to make her mother's recipe for apple dumplings. Emma thrived under their combined care. She grew from a fragile newborn to a robust infant with bright eyes and a ready smile. Her first clear word, to Victor's undisguised delight, was Vic. On a crisp December evening, with snow blanketing the ground outside and Christmas just a week away, Victor arrived at the cottage with a small wooden box tucked under his arm. "I have something for you," he said after Emma had been tucked into her cradle. "An early Christmas gift, of sorts." Willow accepted the box curiously. Inside, nestled in soft cloth, lay a silver locket on a delicate chain. When she opened it, she found a tiny photograph of Emma on one side. The other side was empty. "It's beautiful," she breathed, touching the silver surface reverently. "I thought perhaps," Victor said, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant, "the other side might hold a wedding portrait. If you were amenable." Willow looked up sharply to find him watching her with an expression of vulnerable hope. "Victor Evans," she said softly, "are you proposing to me?" He moved from his chair to kneel before her, taking her hands in his. "I am. I love you, Willow. I love Emma as if she were my own. I want to build a life with you both, if you'll have me." Tears welled in Willow's eyes, not the tears of fear or pain she had known with Harrison, but tears of joy, of possibility. "The first day we met," she said, "when I told you how Harrison had beaten me for carrying a girl, you said something that changed everything for me." Victor nodded, remembering. "Then you'll raise her proud." "Those words gave me hope when I had none," Willow continued. "They made me believe I could be more than a victim, that Emma and I could have a future." She squeezed his hands. "Yes, Victor. Yes, I will marry you." The kiss they shared was gentle but held the promise of deeper passion, a passion built on mutual respect and genuine affection rather than possession or control. They married on New Year's Day, 1879, in Whitewater Creek's small church. Emma, dressed in white lace sewn by Willow, was held by Martha Peterson, who dabbed at her eyes throughout the ceremony. Mrs. Sullivan had insisted on hosting the reception at the boarding house, where the couple had first met. As husband and wife danced their first waltz together, Victor whispered in Willow's ear, "Happy." She looked up at him, at the man who had shown her what love truly meant, not domination, not ownership, but partnership and respect. "Happier than I ever believed possible," she answered truthfully. Spring brought renewal to the land and to their lives. The territorial court officially recognized their marriage and Victor's adoption of Emma. The little girl took her first steps across the sitting room floor, toddling from Willow's outstretched arms to Victor's waiting hands. On a warm May afternoon, as they picnicked by the creek that had given the town its name, Victor broached a subject they had discussed only in general terms. "I've been thinking," he said, watching Emma chase butterflies in the grass, "about the future. About our family." Willow set aside her sewing a tiny dress she was embellishing with delicate embroidery. "What about our family? I was wondering if you might consider expanding it," Victor said, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. "Emma should have siblings, don't you think?" The question brought a flush to Willow's cheeks, though not from embarrassment. Over the months of their marriage, she had come to cherish the intimacy they shared, the tender passion so unlike anything she had known before. "I think," she said carefully, "that Emma would make an excellent big sister." Victor's smile was radiant. "You mean?" Willow nodded, taking his hand and placing it gently against her abdomen. "Dr. Jenkins confirmed it yesterday. By Christmas, there will be 4 of us." Victor gathered her into his arms, his joy evident in every line of his body. "I love you, Willow Evans. You and our children, all of them, born and unborn. And I love you," she whispered against his neck, "for seeing strength in me when I couldn't see it in myself. For teaching me that love should lift us up, not tear us down." Emma toddled over to them, plopping herself unceremoniously in Victor's lap. He gathered her close. This child who had brought them together, the abandoned girl who now had a family built not on blood but on choice, on commitment, on love. As the sun began its descent toward the western mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, the family of 3 soon to be 4 lingered by the creek, bound by ties stronger than any legal document, any wedding vow, any shared name could create. For Willow, who had once fled in terror with a newborn not her own, the journey from that desperate escape to this peaceful moment seemed both impossible and inevitable. She had found not only safety but joy, not only shelter but home. And when their second child, a son with Victor's blue eyes and Willow's determined spirit, joined their family that winter, the circle was complete. The photograph placed in the empty side of Willow's locket showed not a wedding portrait as originally intended, but a family. Victor, Willow, Emma, and baby James, their faces alight with the quiet certainty of belonging.